What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now, if you want to stay up to date with all my latest interviews, just click that subscribe button below, as this also helps to support the channel. Now, if you're new to my show, I interview guests from a spiritual perspective, covering mainstream and alternative subjects. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Alan Steinfield. Alan is a writer, producer, and speaker in the fields of human potential, metaphysics, consciousness evolution, healing, and spiritual awakening. He is also the host and director of the TV show New Realities, and he joins me today to discuss his new book, Making Contact, Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. Alan Steinfield, welcome back to the show.
Always good to be back with you, Kevin. Anytime you want to talk, I'm here to talk with you.
You know what? For people that don't know, we did an interview back in 2018. It doesn't feel like 2018, but it was. And this was for the Channeling docuseries, which I'm going to link below. So if you want to see my interview with Alan, just go to the link below. Actually, anything to do with Alan in this conversation, his books, his websites are in the description below and coming up on the screen. Alan, your website is for the podcast people?
My best website, because my home website's down, but it will be newrealities.com. You can find me now with my most current material at youtube.com/newrealities. So New Realities is my tagline for everything you want to know about me and the world.
Excellent. Now, you're back in New York?
I am back in New York. I spent a lot of time in Sedona this year, it's a place I launched my book. I thought that was the ground zero for UFO enthusiasts. I mean, more than Roswell, this is a place of mature understandings of what this interface is about. So yeah, I had quite a good coming out for that book, and it's been doing well in the markets. And I think it's having an impact on people because it's a collection of essays. This is not just my opinion. It's 11 of the best researchers in the field, some of who I'm sure you've interviewed and talked to.
Yes, I have. So this is based on making contact, preparing for the new realities of extraterrestrial existence by yourself. The first question's got to be, and you've been asked this before, but I'm so curious, why this genre? Why this book now?
Well, it just happened to be perfect timing for the book. The government was coming out with their assessment of the situation, what they're calling UAPs, formerly called UFOs. I'll get into why the change, but I think, all these, my favorite joke is UFOs are just billionaires from other planets visiting the Earth, but there is a lot of talk about space. There's a lot more sightings around the world. people are curious, and the media is now taking this seriously because of the New York Times articles and the Senate Intelligence Committee report. So this is a preparation. This is a foundation. It's kind of a review of the last 75 years, really since Roswell, 1947, till now, of the full scope of the phenomena. And no one, I have to say, really has the whole story. That's why this is more like a mosaic. People are looking at different aspects of this phenomenon, but there's so many moving parts, it's hard to keep track of everything. So
Yes, okay. And what do you think, well, in your opinion, was the outcome of what was released in the end by the government, or what their take on the phenomena is or was?
the outcome was, bottom line, there's something out there we don't understand. It's not Russian, it's not Chinese, it's not our advanced technology. It doesn't, this is what Luis Elizondo, who was one of the key players in breaking the news, not in that report particularly, but he says, this is not from any country on Earth. He didn't go as far as saying it's alien, but he's saying he doesn't look like any country on Earth, which is a kind of indirect way of saying it's alien. So this report gave the world the foundation that we are dealing with something real. We don't know what it is, who are they, why they're here, but let's just start with the basics. That's important. If you're going to add more stories onto that, they're not Pleiadian or this or that. I mean, people make up all sorts of stories. They may or may not be true, but let's just establish there's something here. I mean, if we can get that through the consciousness of Americans and the world, then we're in a new landscape. We're on a new playing field, and that's key for changing people's minds about the nature of reality. So that's what's important.
Yeah, there's so much out there, isn't there, of different types of ways that people have looked at this phenomena as well. What in the end helped you to decide who to have in this book? What was your sort of criteria?
Well, Kevin, we met at Contact in the Desert, and I've been going there and being an MC there for the last, well, they haven't had the last 2 years, but before that, I was at every single one. We had thousands of people attending. It was the best of the best, I have to say, and actually acknowledge the people who put those things on, Victoria Jennings and Paul Andrews. And so I was around these people. It was my assessment, who's the most intelligent? Who has as many pieces as possible? And the diversity of the opinions. So I have Nick Pope in there, who just looks at the government's involvement, just talks about why the government wouldn't want to tell us there's things out there. He worked for the UK Ministry of Defense, so he's an insider. He understands. He was an investigator for the UK Ministry of Defense, so he knew what they were talking about. He can't tell us everything, but he knew enough to know they were taking these things seriously. He kicks off the volume from the external. I go deeper and deeper into the layers with Grant Cameron. Grant says some very interesting things, such as, do you think UFOs really need lights to travel across the universe? Why do they have light? He says those lights are for us to see them. They're not using lights to navigate. So he implies there's an interactive element to this phenomena. He says, you see them, but they're seeing you. And there's actually an entanglement of consciousness. I know you've talked about consciousness a lot in your channeling series. So there's something that happens in this where the mind opens up to a bigger reality. So, and then I go on, Linda Moulton Howe, one of the geniuses of our movement. I got an unpublished essay, previously unpublished, by John Mack. I got it from his archive. You know, John Mack was, right? Yeah, Whitley Strieber has a chapter in there. I have my own story of abduction in there. Mary Rodwell, who's worked with children all over the world, talking about their memories of coming from other planets. And Carolyn Corey, who's a great, Carolyn, I'm sure you've interviewed her, right?
No, I don't actually, no.
Oh, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Carolyn's one of the best. She did a movie called Super Consciousness where she looks at kids reading through blindfolds, remote viewing. She looks at a lot of aspects of the
I wonder.
super.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that. Yeah, okay, but thank you.
I'll give you her information. And she's also a contactee, and I make a big distinction between abductees and contactees in the book. Abductees don't want to go, get away, they're traumatized. And the contactees say, okay, come on, let's visit, let's see what's going on. Of course, an abductee can change into a contactee after they process the trauma, and that happens a lot of times if you read Ray Hernandez's book Beyond UFOs. So there's this crossover aspect to the phenomenon, and the experiencers. Experiences are key, and I really wanted to put as much of that, including my own experience, in there. So I don't know, have you had experience with the phenomena?
Yes, and it happened when I was a child. My whole family had the same experience on this particular day, and even when we go to discuss it as a group right now, we can't really, because it's just none of us have got a reference for it. We know it happened, and we can talk about bits of it, but it's difficult to put it together.
Mm. Where were you exactly?
This was in the UK. I was in the very early teens, maybe 12. Not really
Where in the
teens.
UK? I'm just
Just
curious.
outside London. This was on the night of the Freddie Mercury concert, the tribute concert
Ah,
back in the I remember that night, and it
oh,
was
that
yeah.
that that Live Aid concert, you say that?
No, there was a Freddie Mercury tribute concert.
Oh,
Yeah, and
oh,
it was the night that took place, and it was the weirdest. It was so weird that in all these decades later, my sister's still got the drawing of what she witnessed that night, and I've asked her to dig it out. She did dig it out about 10 years ago, and I had a copy of it, but I lost it. But she's still got the copy. Like I say, if I speak to my parents about it or my family, it's difficult to put it into words what this was, and we don't talk about it much.
well, people don't talk about it because it is so weird. That's why I wanted to write a book from as many perspectives as possible. So this is why the subtitle is Preparation for the New Realities. People need to read about it. They need to talk about it. They need to hear about it. Government needs to unfold their secrets about it. If more people talked about it, it would integrate into our reality and it wouldn't be that weird. That's what needs to happen. And that's really why I wrote this book, because we need to adjust our level of reality to something new, something unknown, something formally impossible. That's the trauma of this contact experience. It's like, how come no one told me about this? I've seen this in movies, but you see a lot of stuff in movies. But when it actually is right there in front of you, even me, even though I'm so into this, when I've seen strange lights in the sky, I say to myself, am I really seeing, is this really possible? There's a disconnect. Even in the most trained observers, it's like, really? I mean, is this, and it is, it's just, you know, culture is not your friend was one of my favorite lines of Terence McKenna. When we're conditioned to believe a certain level of reality, that is so deep into our psyche that this is why I'm so happy you did the channeling series, because even that is suspicious to some people.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's been suspicious to me, and I'm the one that's doing it.
Exactly. It's the same with you. But how could these people? Yeah.
There's been many times that I've thought I'd be walking away, Alan, from doing any more of these episodic or mini series interviews on channeling, and but it's just kept pulling us back and drawing us in, and there are more to come out soon. There are more, they call us channelers, episodes to be released very soon. I've restarted the series, and I'm continuing it, and but one thing I think we talked about this in the previous interview that we did, was discernment as well, which has been a big thing for me, and how do you apply discernment to what you're doing as well?
Well, I'm so happy you said that about the channeling, because even me, I've been into channeling since 1981. That's when I saw my first channel, JZ Knight, Ramtha, the Enlightened One. And that, I have to say, was life changing. That was a moment where this, bleach blonde housewife from Washington State, Tacoma, Washington, changes into this 35,000-year warrior. There's three possibilities, not to get into the channeling discussion, but, either they're crazy, they're acting, or the slim, slim chance this could be true. And when Jay-Z started channeling, my whole reality shifted. It was like an out-of-body experience, sort of. So I may not believe that channeling is real, but I have to believe my experience. My experience of reality was different. And the same thing with UFOs. When you meet these beings, whether they're in dreams or somewhere else, there's a shift of reality. You know you're not hallucinating. You're not making this up. There's something there. So, R.D. Laing, he was a renegade psychiatrist from the UK. He wrote a book called The Politics of Experience, and he used to go visit schizophrenics, and he'd have to be pulled out of their rooms because he would start to see the world as they see it, and so, there's nothing wrong with it. So, but, not saying that people are schizophrenic, but people's experiences are real to them. My experiences of these UFOs, my experiences of my contact, of my abduction, I can't deny it. And that's not like it's happening all the time. It's sort of a one-off thing. So it's like channeling in a way. It's like it's outside the realm of acceptability. This is why we're in a huge sea change of our relationship to our own minds, consciousness, and reality. This is what the UFOs are telling us. This is what this whole phenomenon, this whole shift, this whole paradigm shift. I know that's already cliche now when you say paradigm shift, but back when that was invented, that word by Thomas Kuhn, he said, the new ideas of the new paradigm don't look anything like what people accepted in the old paradigm. So this is what changes, the integration of anomalies. And that anomalies become the foundation for a whole new way of looking at the world. And this might take 200 years for people to accept the fact that consciousness is basically non-local. I teach remote viewing, and I learned that from Russell Targ, who taught it to the CIA. And he says, it's obvious that our consciousness is not contained in our brain. Our brains are receivers of consciousness. So with channeling, with this telepathic communication with ETs, we're getting an exchange that from the receiver of our brain, but the announcer is not inside the radio. It as a signal. And when we start to tune into more of that level, that we are receivers of the signal, we'll start to accept the idea of UFOs, of ETs, of downloads, of telepathy, of remote viewing. So this is the shift we're in. And it might take 200 years or more for the society to change to accept that reality.
There's a lot of people that come on my show that talk about, disclosure is going to happen now. It's just around the corner. They've always said that, but I think it's a long time away. What do you think where we are with disclosure?
Well, we're making progress. It doesn't all happen at once. It's like water boiling. There's a bubble here, there's a bubble there. People have sudden awakening. So it took hundreds of years for Newtonian laws to be put in place. And now they're out of date, but that was built the Industrial Revolution, second law of thermodynamics is from the early 1700s is still how we're running our world. Energy in, energy out. So we've the whole industrial world on a new way of understanding And we're building a new world on an even more expanded way of understanding. I'm talking about quantum physics.
Yeah, I mean, what would a I mean, you must have thought about this, Alan. What would a post, contactee, a post revelation, a post, government, world government,
Yeah.
piece to camera to the world, right? From different governments look like? I mean, we're still going to have some of the same issues. There's still things that are going to need to be done.
Right.
We've still got to live.
The main thing is, and this is not just on the ET side, it's about their technology. They're obviously not filling up their gas tank to get here from wherever they're coming from. So we have to look at the energy systems that are running these machines. There's no apparent means of propulsion. There's no exhaust. So there's another technology. And this is the hardest part, I think, for scientists, because they only know what they know. They don't know what they do not know. So there's no technology that can explain the way these craft move. There's nothing they can relate to. And this is the new understanding. So if we had infinite energy, 0 point energy, that would change our world drastically in a major, major way. And I think that's the big push here, that we have a new way of understanding reality, and it is about, it'll change our technology, our cosmology, our understanding of biology. It'll change everything we know about reality. That's what's so key at this moment in time.
I always have been a big fan of Star Trek, and I think I always will be. It's the idea as well of the common good. Going out there to be explorers. There aren't jobs as such. Do you know what I mean? It's not about the money. We've all come together as one. Is that possible? Are these shows that are out there, sort of brought from some higher dimensions or higher aspects of what's possible, or what other civilizations have maybe gone through?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons they're here. That's one of the reasons that is the underlying theme of the book, is that when we say universe, we're talking about one verse, one harmony. Consciousness is one. We are connected. Everyone watching this program is connected. Everyone on the planet is connected, because we're all aspects of the same mind, the same greater mind. Aldous Huxley called it the mind at large. But if we're aspects of each other's same mind, I think we're aspects of the mind of these beings. And we are we're not in harmony, we're in chaos as a planetary civilization. Wars, pollution, destruction, extinction, pandemics. There's a lot of chaos. And if we're one mind that's in chaos, it is affecting out there those people. So we're all part of one body, humanity, but that may be one organ in a cell of a greater sentient consciousness. So if one organ's out, or if you have a splinter in your little finger, it disrupts the whole body. And they come and look, what's wrong here? Because that's really the key to the book. We are one consciousness, and something's off, and we are the splinter in the bigger body here. And they're rushing here to see how we're going to fix this mess that is disturbing them.
Yeah, and the fixing of anything comes from starting with oneself. Do you know what I mean? Starting with yourself. And I think that message comes through from a lot of the people I get on. I know it comes through in your book as well, and it's one of your messages. Would you agree with that?
It's starting with oneself, but also realizing that oneself doesn't end with your body or your mind. You're a part of myself. Everyone, oneself is more than just our individual body. So yeah, I want to get my individual life in order. I want to get my consciousness in order. But if I'm surrounded by a lot of disturbance, I'm still going to be disturbed, So I can get myself in order and be an example and maybe influence, but we're all in this together, It reminds me of what Martin Luther King said about Americans. He said, we we may have all come here on different ships, but now we're all in the same boat. So so working on oneself, it's like if you're around poverty and war and violent hatred, all that, that's you. That is you, Kevin. That's oneself as well. Yes, clean up your own self, but it doesn't end with your skin. So that's a big.
And that's how can people get just even a little bit further down that line of things being a little bit at ease rather than dis-ease? I mean, that almost seems to be like, multiple lifetimes ahead of us to even get that to that point.
Well, I think everything has to fall apart, which seems like it's doing. All the disruptions, the disharmony, the prejudice, the racism, that all has to come to the surface, because if it's seething below the surface, that's the infection. But once it's out, once you can pull it out, see it for what it is, that is where we're at now. We're seeing more disharmony, more disruption, but it's out. It's out. Everyone is showing their true face. So it's like, that's the first step, but this is a multiple. I mean, you say, how can we? It's many, many levels of integration. It took us thousands of years of imperialistic, dogmatic, religious, divisions that have created the mess we're in. It's not like, oh, I have a solution and boom. And this is why they're not helping us out of the mess we made. It's like your parents telling you, you're not going to have any friends until you clean up your room. So we have to clean up our room until we have friends over. But they're here making sure we don't destroy ourselves with the ridiculous weapons that we've created to defend ourselves from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think some of that, as you mentioned there, comes down to making sure that we're we're living in our purpose, or we're doing something that's we think is in purpose?
No, that is key. Living our purpose gets us in harmony with ourselves, because when you're living your purpose, everything comes online for you. And some people's purpose is to work with this, chaos, and that's their purpose. And there's some great people. I mean, there's no one really leading the charge, but maybe we don't need leaders anymore. But part of the purpose, and maybe part of the chaos, is so people could rise above their self and find their purpose in leading people out of the chaos and leading people out of the problems that they're having. So I think you're right, though. That is key for everyone, finding their purpose and living it the best they can.
Obviously, this is your contribution right now, and you're continuing your talk show. You've still got that happening. Yeah, that's still part of your.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Because I'll we'll link up your talk show because you've done some great interviews in New York. With some great people on your show. I'd highly recommend it.
So you want to ask me my purpose? What are you going to ask me?
I was going to get to where do you see you read my mind. Where do you see your purpose going?
Well, it's always been my little angle is, how do we increase awareness? How do we learn that our limited view of reality is not the only thing? And so this book is a part of it. My YouTube channel, New Realities, is part of it. And it's something I want to learn myself. It's embarrassing to say, but sometimes I get stuck. I had to create a new password for my computer, and it took me, and I downloaded some new software, and it took me an hour to figure out a new password for myself, because my old password was taken. It's like I got just stumped for something. It's like looking at my own blocks and working my way through that I learned that there was more. So it's overcoming our own obstacles, looking at our own stuff and realizing there's more to the world. It's an ongoing struggle in a way to see the world fresh, to not fall into patterns. So I feel if I can help people do that, this is my contribution to a new world, which is what we need. And hopefully new inventions, new discoveries, and creativity, inspiring creativity. If we can do that in everyone, we have a new world based on new possibilities.
Yeah, maybe there'll be new ideas and new ways to look at, some of the things that we class as destructive and causing chaos. Maybe there's, new paradigms that are going to come out, that explore that stuff as well from a different perspective.
Well, that's what the ETs, when we acknowledge the presence of these beings, it's not so much their presence, it's the byproduct of what they stimulate as far as the creative aspect of the unknown. I mean, when the Western Europeans discovered America, not that we can debate that whole thing about discovery, but that Western mind went into a renaissance. It went, I mean, that wasn't the only thing, but it's like new discoveries, new possibilities opens up the creative channels. So things, one of the great things John F. Kennedy said about going to the moon, 1962 or 3, he said, we're sending the man to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And in that, we will make great discoveries about, and that's true. We did. So the discoveries of the unknown lie in new venues of perception. These ETs will be nothing like we think they are. That's key. That's key. It's so key. So when we meet the other in this form, we're going to have to do a lot of a reevaluation of our mind in order to make sense, in order to fit them in. Well, we can't fit them into our little reality. That's why we're having me and you having such a hard time about channeling and all that. It doesn't fit into the little reality.
No, it doesn't. And with the discernment on top, and then other people's judgment of it, it can soon,
Right.
truck you to the side. But
Right.
you've just got to. You just got to know that if something's coming through someone, how useful was it? How powerful? How impactful was it? Is there something in there that can that really can help me shift and make the best version of me come through as well, and many other things without it taking away my power. Is it giving me power rather than taking away, and making me think outside the box as well? Well, you do talk about in the book. Methods of communication, and telepathy obviously is what you talk about, but I guess that's one thing that you feel it would possibly be the way that
Well, that's what a lot of people say who've had experiences. There's sort of a non-verbal, non-linguistic, it's a thought to thought, and we know that's possible in remote viewing when 80 or 90% of the class gets a picture that I'm looking at. They are, either remote viewing the actual object or they're reading my mind, but it's phenomenal about the percentage of people that can do this. I mean, it's fantastic. You should take my next remote viewing course at Portal to Ascension. I'm starting in October.
Well, why don't you? We're putting it on the screen right now. I think that's been coming up on there.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Portal to Ascension, remote viewing class. I'll invite you as my guest, Kevin, and you could try it out for yourself. And
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so if anyone wants to join us for that, the details are on the screen and again in the description below as well. Which and people can sign up for that now, can't they? The pre-sign
they
up.
can. Portal to Ascension. It's a 4-week course. We're going to learn what Russell Targ taught me when he taught the CIA how to do this, and it was called psychic spying, but that was kind of too hokey, so they just called it remote viewing, which has a lot more official names. But it really goes back to the whole idea that there's more to the human being, and that's really also another big part of the book. Making contact is making contact with ourselves. It's making contact with the earth. It's making contact with each other and the other. But making contact is a kind of returning to source in a sense.
Well, yeah, because in your book you also talk about the quantum physics and the observer effect related to the UFOs, as in some people see it and you're looking at exactly the same space, and they don't see it. So what's that about? Yeah.
That's about how open, that old saying, it's not when you see it, you believe it. When you believe it, you'll see it. Of course, some people don't believe it and they do see it. It means there's a little window in their mind. But when you see a UFO, you're also entangled in a quantum physics world with the phenomena. It's something people don't generally ever forget. Like you saw that with your family. You didn't forget it. Maybe other people blocked it out of their minds, but it's a moment that's frozen in time. And it's frozen because there's a higher level of awareness that is part of this phenomena.
Yeah, it's so strange you say that. Well, it's not strange. It
Yeah.
was like time was frozen for aspects of the experience that we had, all of us. It was so, going outside the front of the house and there was no one there. It was just no cars, no birds, just nothing except.
Well, you may have been abducted, Kevin. I hate to tell you that.
Well, I actually, when I had a regression many years later in Los Angeles, I actually did go through that actually did happen. But,
Oh, you were abducted at that moment.
apparently. When I got
I know, it's hard to believe.
when I got regressed, the next minute I'm in this whatever this is and on this table naked, and there's these small beings around, and then there's this big whatever it is telling me to calm down, and everything's going to be okay, and we're watching you, we're going to be observed, and all this kind of stuff, and there was other things said, and the next minute I'm being placed behind my parents and my brother and sister in this spot, and the next minute we're all awake in this place, and we're observing the next sightings late at night. But I did my mind want to make that up? Maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe wanted to make it up, or maybe I have to say maybe it actually is an experience, but it doesn't. The key to what I'm also saying, these things don't happen in the reality we are living in now. It's physical, but it is a shift. It's a warping of time space. This is what I can make sense of. So they're not of this world, and they're in the world. They come in and out of this world, but when they appear, the scope of their consciousness, like I'm sure you've experienced in channeling sometimes, you get into people's minds and there's a little distortion in the normal sense of being. Well, with ETs, it's so vast, that distortion. It's so unnerving and unsettling. We can't even stay conscious in that frame. So it seems like a dream. It seems like you're making it up. But if we would be more lucid, if we would be more conscious of our subconscious mind, of our dream states, we would understand that these realities are all around us all the time, and they're as real as this one. We've just gotten used to this, desk and computer, but there's so much more. I mean, that's how I explain channeling. There's so much more that we've been blocked out because no one ever told us it was real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then there's a great film coming out this week, which, well, I say the trailer's coming out, The Matrix 4, which comes out in October. And I was just watching the sort of teaser trailer. And I was like, it just reminded me of some of the work that I've been doing, just watching that, the idea that there's something beyond this understanding. And I've always known that. Yeah. So.
Well, what if you could trust that experience you just told me? What if you can just say, okay, I might be making up, but what if I'm not making it up?
Oh yeah.
What if they,
yeah.
Right. So what does that do to you?
Well, it at least gives me the freedom to know that the work that I'm doing is helpful. What does it do? It says that everything that we take as meaning, the pain that this reality causes sometimes, or whatever we're going through, means nothing really, because it's not real, but it is real. But there's a hack, there's a way forward out of it. This is just a blip in time, and this is so important, just being here. But to know that we can control it, and that we can manifest the life that we want. Yes, we're going to go through difficult times, but it's all part of the journey that we signed up to, probably. Some of the bigger lessons and everything else, and that we're never alone, and that it just feels very real, doesn't it? And that's where the pain and the separation comes in sometimes.
Well, it is real on some level, and we have to acknowledge the pain and separation in order to go through that level. And so the pain grounds us in the human experience. I'm not saying that's fun, but that's an aspect of the totality. And I think when we can let ourselves feel the pain, the whatever it is, it somehow makes those other worlds real too, not to escape to. Because if you don't feel the pain here and you escape to those other worlds, none of it's real, and that doesn't help.
We don't want anyone escaping this moment here right now, but just between me and you, and everyone else's moment, and beyond this is so important. It's just so important to be here. It's so important to have this experience. We came here for it, and even if you don't want to believe any of that, we can make the most of it, because there's a lot you can learn from it.
It's the only thing, but it's not everything. That's right. What I have to say.
Yes. I'm struggling here with you trying to put this into words. I really am.
There are no words. We are developing a culture. That's why your work is so important, Kevin, because we're developing a new culture that needs to have new vocabulary, new way of understanding ourselves within the context of this greater world, this greater phenomena we're a part of. There are no words in this primitive level of society. So we're creating a new cultural values.
Well, you're so right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that validation as well. Yeah. And the same, I hope you feel that validation for yourself.
No, that's my, I wouldn't say struggle, but that's also my excitement. That's part of, it's the excitement. How do we create a new foundation for everything that's been denied our conscious awareness? So it's a continuation of what happened in the 1890s when the subconscious mind finally emerged as a reality, and psychoanalysis and all those things. But that's gotten sour because it's the psychology that developed out of that made us doubt ourselves. So we need to integrate those lessons of the greater mind and stretch towards, I would just say, the unknown. We have to stretch towards the unknown. That's what Krishnamurti says. Freedom is freedom from the known. And that's the challenge every minute. And that's where I get down on myself when I say, oh, I could have went to the unknown and I didn't. I was plated. And so but
that's got to be okay. But that's got to be okay, though.
Yes,
because that's what you came here for.
I know, but when the unknown presents itself, it's like I need to get over my own roadblocks and confront that. But we're always being challenged by that. But yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it's a test. Maybe next time.
I think you're doing great. I think you're doing better than you could even understand. I mean, just listening to you and what you've had to say in this interview, it's so goddamn helpful for so many people. You just don't. If you could just see it from a different perspective and just have that space, you would see what you were doing. You really would.
Well, I appreciate that. That's really good. We can go a little longer if you want, because
okay. Well, we won't. I'm aware of the time, because I was just going to say that we're getting right to the top of the hour.
Yeah, we can go a little bit.
Well, let's just go a few more minutes then, because I know you've got to get going. Let's just great sum up there. Thank you. I was going to ask you, and you pretty much said, but let's just reinforce it. What's the most important takeaway from this work that you're doing right now, do you think?
it's a continuation of this whole idea of like our consciousness is ever expanding. It's being confronted by the unknown. We are stretching into places beyond our limited personality, the ET experience, whatever they are. You know, I just interviewed Grant Cameron. He says, you know what? They may not even be ETs. I said, Grant, don't tell me that. I just wrote a whole book about it. But he's right, because what we're calling these things, whatever these things are, is only based on what we know. It's not based on what we don't know. When we call something an unidentified flying object, UFO, it's like we're identifying it as unidentified, which is doublespeak. It means nothing. How do you identify something as unidentified? It's ridiculous. But I was going to say one of the keys that came out of the government recently, and it started in the UK, was when they renamed the whole UFO phenomena UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena. So we went from objects, because the other two words are pretty much the same, unexplained and unidentified, but objects to phenomena. So these are not just machines in the sky. And you look at some of the reports that came out of the government, came out of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, it says it influences cognitive perception, what we've been talking about here. It creates time-space anomalies. Other people said synchronicities increase, healings can increase, psychic awareness, all these things that so it's more than just objects. There's a phenomenon going on.
Well, that was what my final question was going to be, because I think this ties it in, because there's always been that thing with me. It's like, oh, not another UFO show. Sometimes I feel that way, because I mean, we're struggling just, coming out as bisexual, do you know what I mean, right now? And it's like, okay, well, come on, bring it in. But let's just go to that. The UFOs as part of our evolution as the human race for consciousness. What's that about?
Yes. It's about everything. We've got ourselves into a real mess because we've been so self-indulgent. We've separated ourselves from each other, and there's something that's coming from outside this world, this reality, that may pull us together to understand we are one planet. The UFOs and the environmental crisis are the two key factors to show us that we are a single species on a planet, and we need to get along, and we can go either way. So it's like they're here to wake us up to who we really are, but they're not going to do it for us. So with this book is not so much about UFO, who cares about that? It's about us. It's about rising to the occasion of being the greatest version of ourselves we can be, with each other, with the unknown, with the planet. How can we achieve greatness, each one of us, and be challenged to go beyond our previous notions of reality? And then maybe we'll meet the other and say, well, we've been waiting for you. What took you so long? And I said, well, we had to work out some problems at home here, So I think there's great hope for the human race. I do, even though it looks quite desperate and edgy right now, and the division is greater than ever. There's always the unknown coming into purview that will wake us up to some new realities. That's my hope.
Well, thank you for that. And that's what makes this book so important. I mean, there's a lot of UFO books out there, but this is done from your perspective, and you are mixing the consciousness side so deeply, so understandably, but
what the key to the whole book is? Do you see the title on my screen there? Between making and contact. What do you see there between making and contact? There's a little yeah, it's a little asterisk.
Yes, asterisk. Sorry. Yes. It's
the asterisk means start. It's a symbolic language. It symbolizes some abstract thought. It's not a word. It is a symbol of the unknown. It's a symbol of it is the point of contact. Symbolic reality, abstract awareness. This is what that little dot represents. It is the point of contact. It is the key to contact, between making and contact, is the point of achieving another level of meaning in symbolic realities. We talk in symbols. The world is symbolic. We need to understand this is how these ETs, whatever they are, don't communicate to us in words, but they communicate to us in symbolic representation. It's the higher, more abstract language. If you're talking to a dog, you're not going to bark at them. You're talking to the more evolved language. They talk to us in this more symbolic, more complex, more abstract way. When we start to think more abstractly, we no longer collapse the wave function into comprehension. We access a greater reality through apprehension. So that's just something to think about.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It does. No, I think what you're doing here is absolutely fantastic, Alan. And your website, just one more time as well, is?
Yeah, it's newrealities.com. The book you can find at Amazon. Look up Making Contact, Alan Steinfeld. My YouTube channel, where I interview a lot of people about these very topics we're talking about, is youtube.com/newrealities, one word. And I do sometimes 2 or 3 interviews a day about this new way of looking at things. There's a Starseed conference coming up. Look at Portal to Ascension. I'm working with them a lot. There's my remote viewing class. There's in 4 weeks in October 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th. Learn remote viewing. Learn to know you are more than your limited mind. The future is full of possibilities. That's the takeaway from this book. So it's up to us.
Absolutely. Alan Steinfield, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for the extended time. And we will catch up again with another interview sometime in the future.
Anytime. I enjoy this, Kevin. Thank you. And be well and happy and joyful and all those human things. You're going to get through it.